Well, I'm thinking I don't have to tell you where today's presentation is coming from. We're in the courtyard of the high school, as you can see, and the topic is passive voice. Now, what is passive voice? Passive voice is when the subject is no longer verbing, but being verbed. You know how I say the subject is verbing, the direct object is being verbed, and the indirect object is to whom or for whom is the direct object being verbed. Well, in a passive voice, the subject isn't verbing, the subject is being verbed. Now, this is way more common in German than it is in English. In English, it's even frowned upon. Sometimes when you're writing it on a computer, it'll spit out your passive sentence and rewrite it for you in the active voice. Doesn't it just want to make you slap it and toss it out the window? But anyway, in German, that won't happen because the passive voice is used quite a bit, and sometimes, even in English, it makes sense to use the passive. Now, how do you form the passive? If I say my father's repairing the car, it's fine. And I could say the car is being repaired by my father. Now, how did I get that? A form of the verb to be is being, present tense, plus the past participle comes right after it, and you have the past to combine those two, and you have the passive voice. The car is being repaired. If I wanted to change the tense, I'd say the car was repaired, the car will be repaired, the car has been repaired, future perfect, the car will have been repaired by my father, any one of those things. But I keep messing with the tense of the verb to be, but repaired stays repaired. An example I'm giving you here, and so in German, by the way, in German, they do the same thing, almost exactly the same thing, one slight difference. Instead of using forms of the verb to be, in German you use forms of the verb werden. That's it. Everything else is the same. So, if I have this sentence in English, the cheese is being eaten, that's present tense. The cheese is being eaten. In German, I simply take werden in the present tense, conjugated to match the cheese, wird, ich werde, du wirst, wird, and then the past participle, gegessen. Der Käse wird gegessen. Okay. Now, the wind is blowing here. I'm trying to keep everything from disappearing. If I change the tense in English, I just simply, as I said before, I just put the form of the verb to be in a different tense. The cheese was eaten. Okay, so now I simply have to take werden and put it in the past tense. Der Käse wurde gegessen. Now, von meinem Onkel, that's the agent. And in English we say by, the cheese was eaten by my uncle. And in German you would say der Käse wurde von, and von is followed by the dative case, von meinem Onkel gegessen. Now, you use von, I'm not going to make a big deal of this, but you use von when it's an adamant object, people basically. But when it's an inanimate object like fire or something, then you use a different preposition. Das Haus wurde durch Feuer zerstört. The house was destroyed by fire. So you simply take, in English we take the verb to be, make it past. In German you take the verb werden, make it past. And you have the past tense of the passive if you combine it with the past participle. Okay. Now, what about the future tense? Think about the future tense. In English, the future tense is will plus the infinitive. We need, and if the verb is be, then it's will be. I will be here tomorrow. That's my future tense of the verb to be. And in the passive, I attach that to the past participle, and I have my future passive. In German, I do the same thing. I take my werden instead of the verb to be, and I make it future. And how do you make it future? You put the infinitive werden at the end of the sentence, right? I will go, ich werde gehen. Ich werde nach Hause gehen in German. An infinitive goes at the end. And then I use my passive indicator helping verb, which is werden. So I have two verdens. One to indicate the future tense, and the other to indicate the passive. So, der Käse wird gegessen werden. The cheese will be, werden is to become, but in English we use be for the passive, eaten. Der Käse wird gegessen werden. Infinitive at the end. Now, in English, that passive is really only used if you can't make it an active sentence by taking the agent and making it the subject of an active sentence. You wouldn't use passive in English. That's not necessarily true in German. German uses the passive a lot. So, for example, there will be dancing this evening. Well, there's no direct object. You can't create in English, take that direct object and make it the subject of a passive sentence. You can't do that in English. You can't make that sentence passive. In German, you can. You would say, heute Abend wird getanzt. This evening will be danced. Is being danced. This evening is being danced. Or you can make es the subject and say, es wird heute Abend getanzt. It is being danced this evening. Okay? So, and then I translate it. You can't translate it that way, of course, because that's weird in English. So there will be dancing this evening. Es wird heute Abend getanzt, or drop the S and say, heute Abend wird getanzt. That's an example of where passive would get used in German and absolutely not in English. Before I go on and show you a couple other tenses, let me make this point. Sometimes passive just makes sense. I'd see my mother, I'd go when she was still alive, and I'd go visit her in New York and say, oh, how is blah, blah, blah doing? Oh, not too well. Okay, they jumped her when she came out of her house and dragged her down the stairs and took her purse. And I'm thinking, who's they? You don't know who they is. There's a situation where passive makes way more sense to me anyway. She was jumped, she was dragged down the stairs, her purse was stolen, all of that stuff. If you don't know the agent, passive makes a ton of sense. So don't necessarily shy away from the passive in English, let alone absolutely not in German. Now, what about the cheese was eaten? Well, you simply you see, we took that verb to be and we made it was, we made it past. You take werden and you make it past. Der Käse wurde gegessen. Past tense of werden is wurde. Past tense of be is was. You got the same thing there. Both languages form it the same way, essentially. They do the same thing. How about the cheese has been eaten? The cheese has been eaten. I take my be, the cheese is being eaten, and I make it present perfect, which means a form of have and the past participle. In German, I do the same thing, except werden is my verb, not to be, and my helping verb, because werden is my verb, my helping verb isn't haben, it's sein. So, what do I have? I mean, if you think it through, you would have der Käse ist, because my helping verb is sein, gegessen, because I need my past participle. And then you would say, now I need my past participle for the verb werden, has been eaten, right, my past participle, and that would be geworden. However, I don't know why, maybe because they think that's a little weird, der Käse ist gegessen geworden. When you form these compound tenses using the verb werden in the passive in German, you drop the GE. It sounds much better, rolls off the tongue much better, makes a lot of sense. Der Käse ist gegessen worden. The cheese has been eaten. And if you want to push it back yet another tense, you use war. Der Käse war gegessen worden. You don't really have to worry about that. How often would you say passive voice in the past perfect tense? The cheese had been eaten. You can hang around a couple of years before you ever find the need to say that. Now, last thing, I'm going to give you two tenses of, I guess I'd give you three, and that's really all there are. No, but of passive voice using a modal. And we're back to our cheese again. The cheese has to be eaten. The cheese had to be eaten. And the cheese will have to be eaten. That's really what you're dealing with, three tenses. Okay? So you have your have to, your past participle be eaten, and then the be in English will have to be eaten. In German, has to go at the end of the sentence because the modal verb is second element and the infinitive goes at the end. But everything is the same. It's the same as English. The only difference is word order, and they use a form of werden instead of the form of verb to be, but the exact same forms, the infinitive. So the cheese has to be eaten. Der Käse muss gegessen werden. The cheese has to, must, be werden, because they use werden as the passive indicator, and gegessen, eaten, the past participle. Der Käse muss gegessen werden. And in the past tense, you just take that muss and make it past tense. Musste. Der Käse musste gegessen werden. And in the future, what do you have? You have will have to be eaten. Will be, wird, werden. Okay? Have to, müssen, and then eaten. Gegessen. Der Käse wird gegessen werden müssen. And that's the passive voice in German. It's not limited to eating cheese. Der Koffer muss ins Haus gebracht werden. I mean, it's just unlimited what you could do. Okay? And that kind of makes sense. Look at that sentence. Der Koffer muss ins Haus gebracht werden. You're not interested in who takes it into the house, who carries a suitcase into the house. You're just interested in it getting there. So you don't say, hey, Fritz muss den Koffer ins Haus bringen. No. Well, it doesn't matter who does it. You just say, hey, listen, the suitcase has to be brought into the house. Sounds a little funny in English. Perfect in German. And it meets the need wonderfully. Der Koffer muss ins Haus gebracht werden. So, that'll be it for today. That is the passive voice in German. Ta-ta.